I remember the moment I got left behind. Faces fade to black as they move from the light. Am I even real? Even real? Everywhere I look, I'm starting to feel time is eating me alive, me alive. Drowning in my life. Who am I? Time is eating me My feet glued to the floor, I'm not moving anywhere. Lost inside of a crowd that couldn't care less. Everything was moving so fast. Everywhere I look, I'm starting to feel time is eating me alive, me alive. Drowning in my life. Who am I? Time is eating me. Time moves on and on. Can I stomach it? Can I stomach it? Where did I go wrong? I fear built an appetite, but time is eating me alive, me alive. Drowning in my life. Who am I? Time is eating me I remember the moment I got left behind. Faces fade to black as they move from the light. Am I even real? Even real? Everywhere I look, I'm starting to feel time is eating me alive, me alive. Drowning in my life. Who am I? Time is eating me. My feet glued to the floor, I'm not moving anywhere. Lost inside of a crowd that couldn't care less. Everything was moving so fast. Everywhere I look, I'm starting to feel time is eating me alive, me alive. Drowning in my life. Who am I? Time is eating me.
Hello, hello, travelers! Welcome in. Today we have Tales with Time. Of course, we've got a little bit of a different setup because usually my little PowerPoint there would take up the whole screen. Hello, hello, Lux. Hi, YBS. Hi, Cosma. I was gonna say the built time god. I was like, I'm pretty sure you mean bully. But anyway, yes, we are here with Tales of Time. We're of course continuing Dungeon Crawler Carl, which we're almost halfway through. We're almost halfway through. I'm very excited. But I also decided that I wanted to try a new little setup for our reading streams. As you can see here, hi Lemus. Nice to see ya in there. We got two of the L's tonight. We got Lemus and Lux. We don't have a Louie though. We haven't had Louie in a hot minute, but Louie's been busy with college. So, but yes, hopefully this setup's okay. Am I a Griffin? No, I am not. I'll let you try and guess what I am, but you probably won't guess it. But yes, I am here. I'm here. We are hopefully. It is. It's story time. It's story time. Yes. So my Thursdays, I usually try to reserve for story time or Tales with Time. As you can see here, I got my little PowerPoint up. We've been reading Dungeon Crawler Carl, which if you have not been up to date with that, I try to give like a brief over of what's happened. Of course, you don't have to stay and listen to it. Also, why did it not snooze? Snooze, bitch. There we go. It snoozed. The ads. The ads were. I kept hitting the snooze button for the ads, and it just wasn't going. And I was like, "Why are you doing this to me?" But anyway, yes. I what I usually do for Tales of Time is I read a book that we choose, and it's chapter by chapter. After each chapter we talk about like what happened in the chapter, favorite parts, whatnot, and it's just a real big chill time. I usually encourage like relaxation and have your favorite drink or something. Speaking of drinks, I just have water today because I didn't have time to make any tea because I decided to make bacon instead, um, which I was crunching on earlier while I was setting up stream. So it was very tasty bacon. It was very good bacon. But yes, as you can see, my tail's kind of wagging in the background. Yes, I keep getting distracted by my own like little the tail. Hooah. But anyway, yeah, so of course I have my rules for Tales with Time. Rule number one, no spoilers. You may know what happens in the story, other people do not. So please do not spoil what happens in the story. I know I personally, I don't mind being spoiled, but I know it's not the same for everyone. So if you know something that's going to happen later in the story, please keep it to yourself until we've reached that part. Part two, or rule two, be respectful towards me and each other. You may have differing opinions about the characters in the book, or the book itself, or the author. Just be respectful with your opinions. Well, we respect you, and I respect you. Just respect the opinions I have and that other people have. And then rule three, keep it cozy. Reactions are welcome, but no spamming or off-topic chatter during the reading. Respectful to the bully. Yeah, I know, Lux. You have to be nice to me. Actually, no, I'm just kidding. Of course, the usual bullying we do. I don't. That's fine. Yeah. And then rule four: save long thoughts for pauses. So if you have like really big comments about like what's happening, I don't mind if you like say them. I just won't be able to read them until after the chapter because I'm gonna be busy reading. But yes. Hold on, let me go on to the next little slide here. We're in chapter 21 is where we left off. Miss Pocket Teacher. I know. I make it sound like I'm watching my kids. That's how I talk to my kids. I'm like, all right, guys, here are the expectations and rules. But yes, we are starting with chapter 21. We've gotten pretty far. Like I said, we're not halfway through the book yet, but we're almost there. Like in this next big chunk that we're gonna read, like I'm pretty sure we'll be halfway through the book. It's a pretty thick book. Can I get a hint on my model? Well, I mean, you're pretty close when you said was it? Where did you say it? You said it yeah, you were pretty close when you said like a dragon bird. It's an amalgamation of a bunch of different animals, if that makes sense. Yeah. I could probably list all the animals, but that would be a lot. Actually, no, it would not be a lot. No, it would not actually be a lot. I guess I've been here. Look at that. You gotta watch a 3 stream streak. Oh, you've been in 3 of my streams this week. Good on you, Lux. Good on you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. But yes, if I remember what happened last time we read, what did happen last time we read? Now I gotta like look back at it because I don't remember. Oh, I do remember. They blew up a bunch of babies. That is that's basically they met with the goblins. Like they went to the goblin neighborhood, met with the goblins. Basically were like, okay, we need you to build us a bike. Of course, Donut charmed the goblins into building them a bike to travel through the floor, and so they built the bike, and they also bribed the goblins with meth, like dungeon meth. So the goblins got high and decided to go drug fight the llama neighborhood. And then while the goblins were gone, Donut and Carl blew up the boss, which the boss room also apparently had a bunch of babies in there. And yeah, and now they're running for their like lives. Oh, they also met some other humans. I can't remember the humans' names, but they killed other people, so they were running away from Donut and Carl were running away from the people killer peoples. And I think that's where we left off, right? Let's see. Oh, yes, yes. That is exactly where we left off. Them running away. Yes. I'm rereading the last bit of the chapter 20, the chapter before this one. But yes, now we're going to be going into chapter 21. But before we do that, I'll yap a little bit about my day. I had a pretty good day. I was again with the older kids because my coworker I think is out sick. So I've been with the older kids today, and it was pretty chill. It was pretty nice. Nothing too exciting happened again. Oh, we had our annual reviews, and I did fucking fire. I got like the highest score that you could get on our annual reviews, and my boss was like, "You're just the best. We just love you so much." And I'm like, "Thank you so much." Um, and then I was like, I was a little shit about it too. I was like, I know, I'm just the best. You guys just need me. You just love me, adore me. But yes, it's a pretty chill day. Tomorrow is Halloween. So here's the ding. Here's the ding, guys. Here's the thing, guys. Since tomorrow is Halloween, I was originally going to start The Last of Us, which is the game that Lemus redeemed. I was originally going to start that first, but I'm thinking maybe we might do like a little bit of a horror game, like random horror game marathon for a little bit instead. But I'll put it up to a vote later, probably either near the end of the stream or I'll do it on TikTok and Discord. I'll put up a little poll for that. And we'll see what we want to do, because I can totally just start The Last of Us, because that's the game I was going to play next for our Friday streams, our horror game days, which I guess it's not really much of a horror game, but that's the game Lemus redeemed, and that's where I'm just going to play it. Or I could do the horror game streams, or the horror game marathon for Friday, because it's Halloween, and we can do some fun stuff. I also haven't decided if I want to do it earlier in the day or later at night, because I'm not quite sure if I'm gonna go trick or treating or not with my siblings, but we'll see, because my siblings are a lot younger than I am. I'm an adult and they very much are elementary children, so they wanted me to go trick or treating, so we'll see how that goes. But anyway, yes, I think I've yapped sufficiently. Did I say what my drink of the day was? I think I did, didn't I? Anyway, it's water, if I didn't say what it was. But yes, I've already gone over the rules. My daily reminder. I am not a professional reader. If you would like to hear the professional reading of this story, I highly recommend going and buying the audiobook or just buying the book in general, because it is a fantastic book. I'm definitely going to mess up. I mess up all the time while I'm reading. If the previous 2 streams of this are anything to go by. I also am not very good at voices. I may do voices randomly. It just kind of depends on my mood. So we're going to see how this goes. But yes, anyway, we're going to jump right into chapter 21. Again, you're free to like talk in the chat and stuff. I just won't read it until I finish the chapter. Usually. Sometimes I get distracted and I'll end up reading one while I'm in the middle of reading and be like, oh. But anyway, yes, here we go. Chapter 21. Time to level collapse, 47 hours. If Frank and Maggie found my trap, I didn't receive a notification. The best case scenario was that they were both dead, and I didn't get credit for it. Of all the achievements in this game, Crawler Killer was one I wanted to avoid. I did not receive any sort of achievement or skill for setting a trap, and it was a safe bet that that'd be a thing here. I took that as a good sign. Donut and I did, however, receive an achievement for our fight with Frank Q and Maggie Mai. New achievement, bitch meat. You've been attacked by a fellow crawler in a safe zone, and the system has been forced to save your ass. That usually suggests you're either really annoying or you snore. If this were a prison, you would now be my bitch. Wait, reward. Bitches don't get rewards. I laughed. For the first time since we'd entered this ridiculous game, I laughed at one of the stupid notifications. The ride was significantly smoother than I anticipated. We got about 3 or 4 miles per lump of coal, and I had an almost endless supply. We only managed to travel east for a single junction before we hit a wall, and we were forced to choose between north and south. If the map in my head was accurate, we hit the edge of Lake Washington above, once again proving that the dungeon didn't truly circle the planet. We went south, traveling down a rough approximation of the I-5 corridor for a short time before passages that went east and west started reappearing. I strongly suspected we needed to head east and inland before we saw any stairwells. But the problem was directly east. But the problem was directly. Hold up. But the problem was directly east was a large mountain range up above. And if the dungeon had been desolate before, it'd be downright abandoned here, not for another 100 miles. We decided to resume our trek east anyway, heading farther away from the western edge of the U.S. coastline. We drove for hours, seeing no sign of people or mobs or stairwells. It was difficult to gauge how fast we were actually moving, but I guess it was about 20 miles per hour. My chopper pilot skill rose steadily as I drove. Once I hit level 5, the throttle actually allowed me to increase our speed. I didn't want to go too fast, but I felt it was important to find a denser area of the labyrinth. From what little I'd seen on the show, I knew there were areas different than this. I had the sense that these giant squares were nothing more than just filler, like the randomly generated terrain at the edge of some maps in open-world games. As we drove, I made Donut keep her map on full screen so she could better scan the area, looking for points of interest. We saw fewer and fewer training guilds out here, but they were there. The bathrooms continued to be all over the place, and rest areas dotted the maps too. My thoughts wandered to my father. If he could only see me now, sitting on this thing, holding my legs out so they wouldn't burn on the side of the glorified moped. He'd laugh, call me a damn fool. He'd been a motorcycle guy, not a full-time leather-clad biker, but he was more of a weekend warrior. I hadn't talked to or heard from the man in over 12 years, not since he'd abandoned me that day, leaving me all alone in the world. Before today, I had never been on a motorcycle in my life. Not that this thing really counted as one. I had a bicycle now that I sometimes rode to work if the weather was good, but I'd never even ridden on a dirt bike, let alone anything more powerful. We stopped once to use a restroom that appeared just off the main corridor. Once we entered the hallway, we were beset by a group of bipedal, raccoon-headed monsters that were as tall as my knee. These things were called scat thugs, and the ones here on the edge of the corridor were all level 3. They were about as strong as regular goblins and were armed with needle-like spears. A pair charged me and got skewered by my knee pads. I took all their spears as loot, which were useless to me, but hopefully I'd be able to sell them later. We used the bathroom, thankfully neither of us exploded, and we headed out on our way. But the short excursion taught me something important. Those mobs were right there, barely 20 feet from the edge of the never-ending artery. We hadn't seen their dots until we'd stopped the bike and approached the boundary of the alley. The fog of war encroached tighter upon us the faster we were going. That was important to know. We needed a skill or a spell or some sort of special ability that would allow us to navigate better. We were literally driving blind, and I didn't like that. It was only a matter of time before we drove headfirst into a trap. We decided to go back on the road, heading deeper east. I moved slower. And then, after several hours, we finally saw something new. I stopped the chopper, examining the spray-painted sign on the wall. 2 crossroads east, 3 south, stairs and people. It was written in English, in red, runny spray paint. I ran my hand across it. It didn't come off on my finger, but it had a tacky texture. The paint was only hours old. Do you think it's a trap? Donut asked. Maybe, I said. Now that we'd stopped, I could see several X's on the map indicating mob corpses just down the hallways. We ventured in to get a better look. These were white-horned goat things with mouths full of fangs. I examined the first one. Lootable corpse, chili goat, level 4, killed by Crawler Brandon, and with an assist by Crawler Chris Andrews, too. Inventory is empty. I examined all the goats in the area, and I counted 15 different names who had either killed or assisted in the slaying of the mobs. The goats had been sliced, fried with spells, and I saw several broken arrow shafts, though the arrowheads themselves were all gone. Some of the monsters were literally smashed flat, like the person had an enormous hammer. I'm pretty sure it's not a trap, I said. Let's go find them. The spray-painted notifications continued the closer we got to the area, right where the sign told us to go with the T-junction. I coasted to a stop. The chopper made a chug-chug-chug noise. It would need another lump soon. I was getting good at understanding its sound and vibrations. My ass was killing me and my legs ached. On the ground was an arrow pointing left, which was farther east. Looking at the map, I could see this area was different than any place we'd entered before. The east and west roads didn't continue straight, but they curved away, indicating we'd come to the edge of a massive circle. I suddenly had an uneasy feeling about what might be at the center of this area. I see the stairwell, Donut said. If you zoom out the map, it's right on the edge of what we can see. Sure enough, in the area immediately south and presumably in the center of this giant loop, there appeared to be a stairwell. I hovered over the white square on the map, and it simply read, Stairwell to Floor 2. I didn't see any other blue dots or anything else, just the empty expanse of the fog of war. Look, there's something written on the ground, Donut said, pointing down the left hallway. After a minute's hesitation, I stored the chopper and we went toward the sign on foot. This road is safe. We are gathered 1.5 miles this way. Do not go deeper into the spiral or you will activate the burrow boss. Shit. Mordecai had said that the bosses wouldn't be guarding the stairwells until the 4th floor. I wonder what's in there, Donut asked, looking at the solid wall to our right. Just as she said it, the wall rumbled as something rushed past on the other side. It was like we were standing on a train platform. Whatever it was something fast. Something big. Very, very big. We walked on foot. After about a 1/4 mile, a rounded portcullis appeared on our right, leading toward the center of the circle. The crossbeam gate was lifted about halfway up the floor. We'd be able to slip under and go deeper into the loop if we wanted. There appeared to be another ring just inside. The graffiti had called it a spiral. Looking inside, I could see another doorway just down this wide interior hallway, so it was more like a round maze than a spiral. If we slid under the gate, it would no doubt slide closed and trap us. Let's wait a second, I said. I want to see what it is. We didn't have to wait long. The creature, whatever it was, rushed by in a flash, too fast for me to get an info box. It rolled like a ball. It was pink, fleshy, and it was the size of the entire hallway. It was like a nightmare Pac-Man monster. It made a terrible grunting noise as it rocketed by, shaking the walls. The stench of sewage wafted up as it passed. My heavens, Donut said, crinkling her face like I'd tried to feed her vegetables. This is going to be unpleasant. And that was the end of chapter 21, a short chapter. Throughout this book, you kind of, the chapters are kind of, inconsistent, lengthwise. Sometimes you get, super, 2-page chapters, and sometimes you get long, 10-page chapters. It really just depends. So they're going to possibly meet some more humans, a group of them who have been going through the dungeon. But they've stopped, I think, to look at the boss, it appears. I think if I read that right, or if I remember it right. Yes. Because they went inside the spiral, and they took a peek at the monster, which looks like a pink Pac-Man. That smells really bad. If you guys have any comments, go ahead and say them now while I take a sip of my water. If not, that's alright. I'll just continue right on to chapter 22. Which, speaking of, there we go. Let me set that up. All right. Oh, hold on. Give me 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. Okay. All right. I think we're going to go ahead and move on then here to chapter 22. All right. Chapter 22. Let's see if we can find who's making these signs, I said. We passed 3 more of the rounded entrances before we came across the encampment. It was a full quarter turn from where we started, at the end of another artery. My heart swelled when I saw the sheer number of people there. There were about 40 blue dots gathered at what appeared to be a drawbridge leading into the round maze. My enthusiasm waned when I saw the manner of people waiting for us. Almost all of them were still level 1, and they were elderly, not cool grandpa dude at the club elderly, but holy crap, I love you, Gam Gam, but how the hell are you still alive elderly? Most of them were in wheelchairs. Those who weren't had walkers. Most were in robes and caps, and piles of blankets littered the hallway. They sat gathered together. Most appeared to be asleep. Another older woman stood apart from the group. This one was pushing 70, not 100 like the others. She stood stiffly, her black eyes watching us. This woman was wrapped head to toe in an endless amount of scars, and her skin was like a relief map of a shriveled prune. A red checkered trapper hat with ear flaps sat askewed on her head. She leaned on a shopping cart filled to the brim with blankets and other odds and ends, including a plastic pink flamingo that had an arrow stuck in its head. I remember the stairs I'd had to descend, and I wondered how they'd managed to get the wheelchairs and shopping carts down here. I caught sight of a group of younger, more able-bodied crawlers. One of them, a chubby black guy, saw us approached and waved. He came jogging up. "Oh, thank God," the man said. "Did you see our signs?" "We did," I said. I examined his properties. Crawler number 12,330,671. Brandon Ann. Level 6. Race, human. Class, not yet assigned. He had a single bronze star by his name. The man wore a heavy winter jacket despite the heat. He had a gigantic hammer looped over his shoulder. The weapon was comically big. The round head was almost as wide as the tire on my chopper. It glittered, obviously made of some sort of magical lightweight metal. He didn't appear to have any other armor or gear. "We?" the man said, frowning as he examined my properties. He took a hesitant step back as if he was startled. "Is there more than one of you?" He looked down at Donut, and then his frown deepened. For a moment I was afraid that I had received a skull next to my name without realizing, but then I remembered what my real title was. It didn't say my name as Carl. It said I was Royal Bodyguard Carl, and Donut was Grand Champion Best in Dungeon Princess Donut. I could only imagine how that looked to someone meeting me for the first time. Another man approached. This one was Chris Andrews too. He was also level 6. The 2 men were clearly brothers. He was taller and less stocky. Chris wore a metal skull cap, but didn't appear to have any weapons. "Yes, we are we," Donut said. "I mean, really, I am right here." Rude. Chris and Brandon just looked at each other. Then Brandon burst out laughing. "I'm sorry, man," he said to me. "I didn't realize. I saw your name and I thought..." "Yeah," I said. "You thought I was a nut. She talks. She also probably has higher stats than anybody else here." Brandon went to a knee and patted Donut on the head. She looked simultaneously outraged and thrilled that he had touched her. "Well, it's nice to meet you, Princess Donut. I'm sorry if I offended you, pretty girl. I've never met a talking cat before." "It's quite all right," Donut said, mollified. "Apology accepted." We walked back toward the group. Despite what I had seen earlier with the goat corpses, it appeared there were only 4 people here in fighting shape. Both Brandon and Chris were level 6. A round Hispanic woman, Yolanda Martinez 13, was around 50 years old and only stood about 4'11". She was level 5 and carried a bow and had a quiver hanging over her shoulder. The quiver was so big on her, it almost dragged on the floor. She was in medical scrubs and she wore a plastic ID on her breast. It read Meadow Lark Yolanda CNA. The 4th was another woman carrying a longsword. She, too, wore scrubs, though she also wore a magical cloak. Her name was Amani C. I guess the woman weighed about 90 pounds, if that. She looked to be about 20 years old. Her terrified, hollowed-out eyes suggested that she had seen some shit. All 4 of them had a single bronze star after their names. Amani also had skulls. A lot of skulls. On the interface, it was one big skull followed by 2 more regular ones. When I hovered over it, it said Crawler Killer times 12. She was also level 10, the highest we'd seen so far. "Carl, it's another vile murderer." "I don't think so. Not this time. Also, I know you don't have to type. You know you don't have to type in all caps. I've seen you do it before. It makes you sound like you're yelling." "I am yelling, Carl." We are the night staff at an elder care facility in Wenatchee. I butchered that. Brandon was saying after I introduced myself to the others. Yolanda greeted me with enthusiasm. Imani said nothing. We had a fire alarm and were forced to go outside because someone, he eyed the woman with the shopping cart, started a barrel fire outside our building and caught it on fire. I examined the woman with the shopping cart. She was obviously homeless. We're all homeless now. She stood there, looking off into the space, gnawing on a blackened fingernail. Crawler number 7450. Agatha. Level 2. Race, human. Class, not yet assigned. Anyway, Brandon said, we had to evacuate the building, all 250 residents out into the freezing cold right when it happened. I looked at the group, counting for the first time. There were a total of 38 people here, including the 4 workers and Agatha. There were 250 of you? I asked, looking the group over. Yeah, Brandon said more quietly. Not everyone came down here, and not everyone who did is still with us. He went to explain what happened next. The fire started and quickly engulfed the outside of their building. Luckily, the fire had been on the side of the cafeteria, in an alley area where Agatha had been camped out. Nobody had been hurt by the blaze itself, but evacuations at elder facilities were always an especially dangerous affair. It was no simple task to get everyone out. The local police and fire departments had arrived by the dozens. Firefighters assisted with the fire and with handing out blankets to the freezing residents and workers of the facility. Ugh. They'd been in the process of getting the keys to a nearby elementary school to get everyone out of the cold. But how did you get them down the stairs? I asked. Brandon looked again at Agatha. The entrance appeared right in the street, literally in the middle of the group. A bunch of folks fell in. There were stairs just like you said, but then Agatha over there pushed her cart right into the stairs like she was, well, I don't know what the hell she was doing, but the stairs transformed into a ramp. A ramp. It wanted her to come on down. A long, easy ramp. Agatha was the first to voluntarily go down there, cackling like she always does, hollering she'd saved all our lives. The folks who fell in when it opened, we never saw them again. He shuddered. They weren't there when we got to the bottom. Did you go because of the cold? I asked. He eyed my naked legs. We didn't mean to go all the way in, but it was warm in there. You know what I mean? So I pushed a few residents right into the entrance where the ramp wasn't so steep, so that hot air was blasting up on them. I figured we could wait there until we knew what we were going to do. Only a few of the cops and paramedics remained after the collapse. They just took off running in all sorts of directions, like they had someplace better to go. But some stayed, and they helped me bring the residents into the warmth. It let me do it. We moved several over, but then after we moved about half the residents into the warmth, it just stopped letting me leave. My foot was trapped. My brother wasn't even in the hole, but when he grabbed my hand, it wouldn't let him move either. And it started hurting after a minute. It only stopped when we moved down the ramp. When we got that 20-minute warning, when it said anyone lurking in the stairwell wouldn't get out, we just went in. We didn't have a choice. What about the cops and the paramedics? We had about 20 guys with us, including a couple firemen and cops who decided to go in. Most didn't. We all helped getting the residents inside the hall. He pointed over his shoulder, indicating the artery that led to his quarter of the circle. It was right there, just around the corner where we came in. Most of these folks haven't moved hardly at all since we got here. We've been bringing them food from a safe room that's about a mile away. Where are the cops and firefighters now? I asked. He nodded at the circle. Most went in there when we first found this place. The gates closed, then about 5 minutes later, the gates opened again, and those guys were just gone. Our tutorial guide, Lady Mistress Tiatha, said all borough and city bosses will have stairwells for the first 4 or 5 levels, but there will be a bunch of other stairs in random places too. A couple of us went out searching for them, hoping we could find a stairwell that's easier to get to than this one. This was just a while back. Brandon cast a nervous glance at the elderly patients. He leaned in and whispered, "They're all dead. You can see when they die on the party menu. They all got picked off by something that had been hunting them one by one. Even Dr. Gracie. And she was a damn MMA fighter. Us 4 were the last of the non-residents left. Us and Agatha." I turned to regard the large group of elderly patients. Looking upon them gave me terrible sinking feeling. They shouldn't be here. This wasn't going to end well. Agatha had pulled a blue IKEA bag from her shopping cart. She produced a can of metallic silver spray paint from the bag. She hobbled over to the wall and sprayed a giant circle, then turned it into a happy face. Then she leaned in and sniffed the wall, muttering something to herself the whole time. "Don't waste the spray paint, Agatha," Brandon called. "It's mine," said, clutching the IKEA bag to herself. "You stole it from me. And you stole it from Stan's," Brandon said. Just don't waste it, okay?" "Have you thought about moving all these folks to the safe room?" I asked. "It has to be more comfortable than the hallway." "It's already full," Brandon said. "It's a damn Waffle House from Alabama. Can you believe that? The place has a capacity of 30 people, and my brother, Chris, had been helping the more coherent, more mobile ones get over there. There's this gnome thing in there that's cooking them food and singing. They all love it." He smiled sadly. "Those folks at the Waffle House, they made a vote, and they decided they're not coming out. They're treating it like a giant party." "He doesn't talk much, does he?" I asked, indicating Brandon's brother, Chris. Brandon shook his head while Chris looked at me impassively. "He's not exactly mute," Brandon said, "but he didn't say too much. Growing up, our mom thought he was slow. They put him in a special school because he never spoke, but he's not dumb. He does talk. Think of him as Silent Bob. If he says something, you better listen." Brandon nodded sagely. I hesitated. "And her?" I asked, indicating Imani. I watched as she helped a woman to a nearby door, a bathroom. She made the woman open the door herself. The floor outside the bathroom was stained red. I shuddered, remembering the exploding bug from the announcements. After the woman was safely delivered to the bathroom, Imani turned and helped a man in a wheelchair take a sip of water. Yolanda also moved amongst the others, talking softly. Brandon shook his head. "We got attacked once, right after we found that tutorial place. I don't really want to talk about it, man. But Imani, she has that sword, and several of the residents. We were taking them in groups to Mistress Tiatha. They can't move so quick. It was for the better, letting those things burn them. That had been much worse." I nodded. I had questions, but I knew some things were best left unasked. It wasn't lost on me that her high level is probably a direct result of her having to kill 12 of her former patients, and she'd probably gained a loot box or two. "These people still can't walk, so the dungeon's fast healing and all those healing spells and such don't work?" "Oh, it's amazing," Brandon said, "but it's a curse, too. All of these folks have been cured of hundreds of their little ailments. Not one of them brought any of their medications with them down here, and it's been okay. But at the same time, they're not getting any younger or stronger, and those who've lost memories or cognitive functions haven't been fixed. It's like it cured anything that's going to kill them, but it didn't make them better than they were either." I sighed, turning my attention to the large, rounded entrance to the maze. There was a short bridge, an entrance about 3 times the size of the smaller portcullis, fucking I don't know how to say that word, entrances that peppered the way, with a raised giant gate big enough to allow a pair of goblin dozers through side by side. It led to another round courtyard with 3 exits. The walls shook as the monster sped by, but it didn't appear to enter this courtyard area. "So, what's the plan?" I asked. "The original plan was to gather as many people as we could and then storm the maze. We think it's shaped like a spiral, but nobody was coming, so they went looking for other exits, and that didn't work out so well. Now it's just us, and we can't kill that thing. Nobody even knows what it is." "And then what?" I asked. "Even if we had free passage to the stairs..." I let it hang. I know, Brandon said, "but I just can't leave them. I was hoping maybe if we could get them all down to the 2nd level, then we can do the same thing for the 3rd level, and then they'd all get to choose a class, and maybe they wouldn't be, useless," Donut asked. I nodded. I felt for the guy and the other 3. Would I have stayed, continued with my duty, even when it was so damn hopeless? What a nightmare, I thought. I had it bad, but these guys... The world is over. There was no hope for these poor people they'd been in charge of protecting. This harsh environment wasn't meant for the weak, the frail. Yet to these 4, Brandon, Chris, Yolanda, and Imani, the idea of giving up their duty wasn't even a question. I spent some time recounting our story, including our clash in the last safe room. I told them of our 2 encounters with neighborhood bosses. "I can do something similar with this boss," I said. "I think I can build a bomb that'll go off on its own when the monster hits it. That way we don't have to get locked in there to fight." "It won't work," Yolanda said, coming up to stand with us. "You know those little doors, the ones that let you see the monsters? They're protected somehow. I thought to try to hit it with my bow, but the arrow bounced right off. I poked at it with my finger, and it felt like thick clay. It even glows blue if you touch it. They look like entrances, but they ain't. I think maybe you can go in that way if you push yourself really hard, but I wouldn't try it, and I wouldn't be pushing no bombs through that. The only way in is through this big gate here, and the monster doesn't go into that first room, so you can't hurt it without first getting locked in. But we don't know for sure, Brandon added. Once the gate closed, we couldn't see in there at all. We couldn't hear. We couldn't talk using the party chat, not the ones in there. It was like they'd been cut from the party. I sighed. We had two choices. We could leave these guys and hope to find another set of stairs somewhere, or we could fight the burrow boss here. Neither choice was appealing. Whatever that thing was, it would be almost impossible to kill. I remembered that scene from the latest recap episode. It had been 40 against one burrow boss, and it had slaughtered them. We didn't even know what the hell the monster was. I looked at the clock. We had 40 hours. Geez, had it really been that long since we'd run away from Frank and Maggie? There would be another show in 10 hours. We'd done nothing today except travel 100 miles or so from where we started. And speaking of Frank and Maggie, I had a terrible realization. Your people, the ones who died while looking for more stairs, which direction did they go? Mostly west, towards Seattle. They wouldn't have been north of where you were. Oh, they would have been north of where you were. I remember where we killed the chili goats. That was the farthest out my brother and I had gone. We separated from the group right around there and headed back here. And how long ago did the last one disappear? It was early today, barely 5 or 6 hours ago. I looked down at Donut, thinking, it could have been them, Frank and Maggie, but that would mean they'd gotten into this area before us. That didn't make sense. We were pretty far from where we'd encountered them. Could there be another group of crawlers killing people off? Or was it a monster? Without finding their bodies, we'd never know. Behind me, one of the elderly women started sobbing. Another man, with a back so curved his chin resting against his own chest, scooted forward on his walker and patted her on the back. The hunchbacked man was wearing a veteran's cap. He had been a U.S. Army Special Forces once upon a time. If I'm gonna die, I might as well do it in the pursuit of a worthy cause. Are there any other rest areas around here? I asked. Ones that aren't full. Yeah, we know of two. One of them doesn't have anything in it except a vending machine that hands out wrapped candies. They taste like piss, but give you a +1 boost to your dexterity for 10 minutes. The machine only works for you once a day. The next place is further down. It's a Taco Bell from Peru and has full facilities, including coffee. He leaned in. And beer. Good beer. What about the mobs near there? I asked. Also, how about training guilds? We've cleared out the next 2 quadrants. Some of the other guys killed the first neighborhood boss. They said it was like a giant demon man in a suit made of skin. We got the second boss. All of us here were in on that fight. That one was a floating crystal thing, but it shattered when I hit it with my hammer a few times. The next area after that, next to the Taco Bell, is still crawling with monsters. They're lizard creatures. They jump and bite and poison you. I got hit once and I thought I was going to die. The poison ran out on its own just before it killed me, and that was only because I kept taking health potions. We didn't want to mess around in that neighborhood after that, but there are a couple of training guilds in that area. Okay, good, I said. This is what's going to happen. Donut and I are going to spend the rest of today grinding. If you can manage to pry a pair of those rattle cans from Agatha over there, I'll take them with us. I'm going to try to level up my skills as much as possible. You guys should do the same. Beware of any other crawlers, especially ones with the skulls by their names. We're going to watch episode 3, get some sleep, and then we're going to come back here, and then all of us, me, Donut, and you 4, are going to go into there, and we're going to fuck that boss up. We're going to get your people down those stairs. Sound like a plan? And how are we going to do that? A new voice asked. It was Amani, speaking for the first time. I grinned. Don't worry. I have an idea. And that was the end of chapter 22. They're getting ready to fight their first burrow boss. So it's like a bigger mini boss, I would say. Because I think it's neighborhood boss, burrow boss, and then city boss, I think is what it is. The city boss, I think, being like the biggest boss on the first floor. And then burrow being the second. And then neighborhood boss, the smallest. But yes, they're getting ready. I'm excited to see how their fight is gonna go. I already know how their fight's gonna go, actually, because I've already read this book. But it's very exciting. I'm very excited. Let me take a couple sips of my water here. Let me snooze the ads too real quick. Snooze. There we go. Hopefully that snoozes them. I don't know why my like snooze button is just being real weird today. They're being real wonky. Oh, it's already been almost an hour. That's crazy. We only read like, what, 3 chapters? 2 chapters now? Those chapters were, well, chapter 22 was long. But anyway, we'll move on to the next one. Oh my gosh. And it has, I didn't even notice this picture the first time. It has a picture of one of the monsters. And it literally just looks like a dinosaur holding a club. And I kind of just love it. Looks like a little T-Rex holding a club. Alright, anyway, chapter 23. So, what's this grand idea of yours? Donut asked as we walked away. With her new skirt-like crupper combined with the butterfly talisman around her collar, she jingled when we walked. How are we going to kill that thing? I've got no fucking clue, I said, but we need them to train. It's our only choice. It took us a full day to find this set of stairs, and we are almost out of time. It's better to face the enemy you know than the one you don't. We don't know this enemy, Donut said. Wait, what are you doing? I had come to the first of the spray-painted signs pointing toward the encampment. I took the can of red paint they'd given me, and I sprayed completely over it, covering it up. Did you see that Amani's level? I asked, standing to see if I could still read it. She was level 10, and that was partially because she'd been forced to kill all those people. So? Are you saying if someone else comes, they might kill all the old people just to get experience? Oh, Carl, darling. Nobody is quite that evil. Donut paused. Are they? I don't know, I said, and I don't want to find out either. But what if a big group of good guys comes through, and they miss it because you covered it up? Look where we are, Donut. We were lucky enough to find these people. There aren't any big groups of good guys. Not in these parts. It's only sharks and minnows. Now come on, let's find that Taco Bell. So, which one are we? Donut asked as we trekked off. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Brandon said they'd put dozens of signs up all over the place. As we headed north, I either defaced or changed all the ones I could find. There was no way I'd get to them all, but it made me feel better. I was busy changing a sign from saying 2 blocks south to 12 blocks south when Donut lifted her head sniffing. 2 more rats around the corner. A moment later, their dots appeared. Your sense of smell is getting better, I said. No, I think the rats are getting stinkier, she said. We'd killed at least 30 rats between here and the encampment. These rats were bigger and fatter than the ones we'd fought earlier. They were level 3. They were all level 3. What? Oh, jeez. They were all level 3. Before we'd left, I'd quietly asked Brandon if they looted the corpses of the folks who'd killed them right when they'd entered the dungeon. He'd been horrified at first until I explained that I needed pants and shoes. He'd given me directions. They looted the extra wheelchairs, walkers, and canes, but they hadn't touched their clothes. It would have required them to physically remove them. The thought made me ill. It also gave me a new burst of hatred for Frank Q and Maggie Mai, who had stripped the body of Rebecca W. They'd probably removed the clothes of the other ones they'd killed too. When we got to where the elderly folks had died, all that was left were piles of bones and shredded clothes. Nothing usable. I picked up the gnawed remains of a slipper, tossing it down with disgust. The rats had devoured everything else, tearing through the corpses like a hurricane, and now the rats in the area were bigger. We turned the corner and entered a new quadrant. A pair of humanoid creatures with loincloths and crude clubs saw us and hopped in our direction, hissing. These were 3-foot-tall lizard monsters, like Brandon had stated, the tallest of them almost as high as my hip. They looked like upright Komodo dragons from the waist up. Small but muscular. Their legs were long and bent, kangaroo-like and scaly. Troglodyte pygmy, level 2. Oh, these fuckers. With intelligence just shy of an off-dropped toddler. The standard troglodyte pygmy warrior would be harmless if it wasn't so damn fast. Or venomous. Brandon had warned me about their special attack, so I was ready. Donut hit the first with a magic missile, while the second leaped right at me, hissing and baring his giant fangs. I hit it with a right hook, my chin covered fist smashing its head, changing the creature's trajectory so it splattered against the wall of the tunnel. It exploded like a damn tomato. Donut's target had practically vaporized under her single missile strike. Her magic missile spell had risen to level 5, and she now had the option to choose how many mana points to put into each casting, from 3 to 6. Her intelligence was currently 24, meaning she could fire 8 missiles if she kept the power setting at 3. I poked at the burned-out husk of troglodyte with my bare toe. It had only been a few days, but I barely felt the ground now when I walked. Random rocks still hurt, but not as much as they would have before. That didn't look like a 3-mana missile. That was a 6, Donut said, sniffing at her handiwork. They really need to make these less disgusting. Less disgusting. If it's a level 2 monster, a 3 will probably one-shot it, I said. Neither dropped any loot, but I took their clubs. If it's about to bite my face off, it's getting a 6, said Donut. We spent the next hour hunting down and killing all the troglodytes we could. The level 3s were called troglodyte bashers, and the level 4s were troglodyte virtuosos. The bashers were twice as big, making them almost human-sized. They didn't have any other special abilities, and they had more regular legs. The virtuosos had a tongue attack that surprised me at first. They were the same size as the level 2s, but they could shoot their tongues almost 15 feet. The then wet tongue stung like a whip, inflicting poison, which was immediately cancelled thanks to my night gaunt cloak. Donut and I were starting to become adept at fighting as a team. She'd wait for an opening to fire her missiles, and I'd move in to finish them off with a kick or a punch. I could tell just by her stance when and where she was going to move. She jumped on my shoulder with ease, using my height to fire on her targets from above. She'd hide behind me, easily slipping between my jacket and cloak, hanging on my back with her claws to avoid a poison attack. Well, any attack, really. We didn't level up yet to 9, but we were well on our way. It seemed after level 8, the amount of experience it took to hit the next level was absurdly high. We were plateauing. Even though I couldn't distribute my stat points, my fighting skills were steadily climbing, giving my attacks more and more damage. The difficulty would probably start all over again when we went down a floor. If we went down a floor. After killing a troglodyte basher, all that was left from one of Donut's missile strikes was the lizard's head rolling about like a lumpy soccer ball. She jumped down and idly batted at it while I caught my breath. With a single With a single swipe, the skull flew across the hallway and shattered into the wall, leaving a crack in the stones. You need to practice with your claws, I said, looking at the damage. My strength is 9, and yours is 18. You're literally twice as strong as I am, and I'm pretty damn strong now. You'd probably swipe through steel if you just tried. Fighting with one's claws is just so inelegant, she said. It's not ladylike. And shooting lasers out of your eyes is? Oh my, yes. With my magic missile, I don't get blood on me like a common house cat. I don't end up matted and filthy. I can't even imagine it. I'd end up looking like Ferdinand. Who the hell is Ferdinand? Nobody you'd know. I sighed. Just think about it, okay? She didn't answer. We found the troglodyte boss room after a couple of hours of grinding through the hallways. This one was a little differently shaped than the others. The room was a long rectangle with what appeared to be a smaller room at the entrance, meaning I wouldn't be able to pull off my bomb from afar method of boss killing. The highest mob in this area was a level 4, meaning, hopefully, the boss wouldn't be too strong, probably a level 7 or 8. It was dangerous, but if we couldn't handle a floor 1 neighborhood boss by now, we'd have no chance against whatever was guarding those stairs. We decided to go for it. We hesitantly approached the boss room. The front door to this one was one of those glass automatic sliding doors, though I couldn't see inside. The sign on the door was in English. It said open 24 hours and fitness weights gains. I grabbed a cigarette and lit it. It was my second to last one. I took a deep drag, and we stepped inside. And that was the end of chapter 23. So they're actually, hopefully, going to fight instead of trick their way through this boss fight. And we'll get to see them in more action. But that's like one of my favorite parts of video games, which I think they portray really well in this book, is the grinding you have to do to beat like the next like highest level boss and whatnot. Because I think of it like, because it's supposed to be like RPG game style. I'm thinking like Dragon's Dogma and Souls, and just you have to keep grinding, and it's just so much fucking work. But this is like they're actually having to fight for their life. And you know what I would say? You know what I would do if I was in this situation? I would just lay down and die. Because I would not have the effort. I would not have the effort. They would like open a door in front of me and be like, nah, I'll pass actually, thanks. I'll just freeze out here. That'll be fine. But anyway, Any thoughts, comments? If not, I'm gonna go ahead and move on here. Um, they have, I guess I just never noticed this before, but they have little illustrations almost next to, like, I think every chapter. Yeah, every chapter start, they have like a little illustration at the top. And I guess I just never noticed that before when I was reading. But anyway, chapter 24. Like the door indicated, this was a this was a high-ceilinged gym. There was a small receptionist desk with a turnstile. Signs hung on the wall filled with slogans like, "Today is the day you gain," and "Excuses don't lose calories," and "Release the beast." The place smelled of sweat and oil and testosterone. From around the corner, I could see racks of fitness equipment. While not tiny, the place was much smaller than the last boss room. I didn't dare throw a dynamite stick in here. A loud, deep grunting filled the gym, followed by the familiar ching of metal weights crashing together. A level 2 troglodyte hissed at us from the counter, and Donut jumped over my shoulder and slammed him with a missile. He fell over dead. Hey, was that a 3 power? He didn't explode. Yes, it was. I'm conserving my mana. The automatic door slammed shut behind us, and the well-lit room turned red. The familiar music started to play as I pushed my way through the turnstile. The boss battle message blared, almost identical to last time. Our mugshots floated into the air, and we were announced as we rounded the corner. 6 of the level 3 troglodyte bashers filled the room, working the machines. A trio of the virtuosos stood in the opposite corner. And then there was the boss. A monstrosity stood across the room, admiring himself in the mirror as he curled a pair of absurdly large dumbbells. The creature stopped when we entered the room. He dropped the weights. The pair embedded themselves halfway into the floor with a reverberating crash. Wood splintered up all around where they fell. The beast slowly turned in our direction, and the world paused the moment his eyes met mine. Oh, fuck, I thought as the face of the creature zoomed big on my interface. Versus the Juicer. Level 9 neighborhood boss. With a body enhanced by the finest anabolic steroids the dark web has to offer, the Juicer spends his days pushing iron, snapping necks, and crying that his pimple-infested sack is a third the size it once was. Having reached a plateau, rage now filled his enlarged heart. All he ever wanted was to gain, but right now, he'll settle on bringing out... The music hit a crescendo with the dun-dun-dun. The pain. The cheese factor on some of these descriptions is just horrifying, Donut muttered. It's worse than the Knight Rider show you love so much. Once again, this creature was a person from our world, though without the description it wouldn't be quite so obvious. It was like they'd taken a troglodyte basher and merged it with a contestant from a bodybuilding contest, and then inflated his muscles well past what a normal body could sustain. He was a couple of inches taller than me. He still had the lizard head and a scaled body and tail. He wore little black shorts and nothing else, revealing a preposterously muscled physique, covered in tributaries of bulging veins as thick as my finger. The thing was so shredded. He was like a kid in a snowsuit who couldn't put his arms down. His trapped muscles made him look as if he had tumors sprouting from the edge of his shoulders to halfway up his scaled head. His thighs were the size of beer kegs, forcing him into a ridiculously wide stance. He waddled when he moved. "Bro," the monstrosity croaked. "I need a spot, bro." He pulled a round metallic free weight from a rack. The disc was the size of a manhole cover. With a twist of his waist, he threw it right at my head. The giant weight burst into flames as it rocketed toward me. "Holy fuck!" I cried as I jumped out of the way. Donut leaped in the other direction. The weight crashed into a treadmill and exploded, shattering the mirror behind it. I think my model just froze. Oh, there it goes. I activated my scroll of confusing fog as the other troglodytes descended on me. The effect was immediate. A thick, wet fog filled the room, temporarily blinding me before it faded before my eyes. Water beaded over everything, making the ground slick. I could still see the outline of the cloud in the room, but the opacity of the effect was halved. I knew the troglodytes couldn't see a thing. The scroll didn't say how long the effect lasted, but I suspected it wasn't long. We had to act fast. The troglodytes, blinded, started running into each other and the scattered gym equipment. The juicer picked up another weight and chucked it in a random direction. "Bro," he groaned. "Bro, I can't see." I rushed toward the group of bashers as yet another weight crashed against the squat rack, knocking it on its side with a mighty clang. We decided ahead of time that I'd take out the support creatures first if I could while Donut dealt full strength headshots to the boss. I leaped over a glute machine, punching down into the wide-eyed confused face of a basher. These guys took at least 4 or 5 punches to stay down. My fists burned as I tore through them. I slipped the leg out of the final basher and he tumbled, hitting his head on the paddle chair of a chest press. As I caved in the side of his head with my fists, the fog cleared, just as quickly as it had come. Damn it. I read my second scroll as I scrambled away from a flaming disc. It smashed into the same chest press, sending flaming hunks of metal in every direction like shrapnel. I cried out as my exposed hip exploded in pain. Blood geysered down my leg. I cast my heal spell just as the fog refilled the chamber. The confusing fog had lasted barely 15 or 20 seconds, and I only had 1 scroll left. Donut bounced back and forth around the room, launching at the juicer, who was content to stay where he was and hurl metal at us. The powerful magic missiles were having an obvious effect on the boss monster, but his health bar was still in the green by the time Donut had to drink a mana potion. The juicer grunted every time the missiles hit his head, followed by a bellow of rage. He picked up another weight and tossed it in Donut's general direction. She was smart enough to move after each blast. The weights flew through the mist like comets. In addition to avoiding the attacks by the boss, Donut had to dodge the random tongue lashes from the virtuosos. She tried to keep a machine between herself and the poison-dealing monsters. Only I had the anti-poison resistance, and if she got hit, we'd have a hard time keeping her alive until she'd be swallowed before she'd be allowed to drink an antidote potion. Both my legs and my hand healed as I launched myself forward toward the other side of the room at the 3 virtuosos. One blindly shot his tongue, and it smashed into the chin-up bar machine next to me. I grasped the tongue with my left hand before it could recede, and the lizard made a strangled cry as it tried to retract but found he couldn't. He retracted anyway, getting dragged across the room toward me. His large mouth clamped down on my fist. I cried out in pain. I banged the head against the side of the machine, but the body remained firmly attached. Its dozens of sharp teeth were embedded in the bones of my arm. The virtuoso wasn't dead, but he was literally choking on my fist. He seemed just as desperate to get free as I was. His body weighed barely anything, and it flailed desperately as it dangled off my arm. I reached the other 2 lizards just as the fog began to clear again. "I'm almost out," Donut cried behind me. I snap-kicked one in the stomach, and he doubled over. I smashed down with my foot, breaking his neck as I whirled on the third, hitting him with a right cross. I took my left fist, which was still inside the mouth of the first troglodyte, and I pummeled the third to death. The lizard fixed to me also died during the beating, and his body broke off at the neck with a disgusting snap. The teeth remained painfully attached to my wrists, while I was wearing a bizarre boxing glove made of troglodyte head. Bits of gore and bone still hung from the neck hole. I whirled to face the boss. The juicer's health was about 2/3 gone. The entire top half of his body was blackened and scorched. I could no longer see his beady eyes glaring at me. "Bro," he said. "Not cool. That was my bro." He picked up another weight and flung it at me. I dove out of the way. It hit the wall, shattering. Shrapnel cut into me, burning little pieces of metal peppered the side of my head. I fell backward over another machine, my ankle getting caught in the wire. I read my final scroll of confusing fog as I extracted myself. Another weight rocketed towards me, whirring over my head like a buzzsaw. It exploded behind me. More metal chunks cut into me. My health plummeted into the red. I mentally clicked a health potion from my hot list as I peeled the skull off my wrists. It was like trying to free a boiled egg from its shell. I had to break the head from the jaw to free my hand. The skull clattered to the ground. After I drank the potion, I noted I had a 15-second cooldown before I could drink another. Donut's cooldown was much longer, closer to 2 minutes. I didn't have time to wonder why we were different. The fog filled the room and I rushed at the boss. "This is a terrible idea," I thought as I approached from behind. The monster was bent over, feeling blindingly for another weight from the rack. He'd pulled all the weights off the one pole, but there were more right below it. Blinded, he couldn't see what to grab. I grasped at a barbell that appeared to have about 250 pounds on each side. I grasped the stop and ripped half the weights free, which clattered to the ground near my feet. I held onto the barbell before it could tumble forward off the bench. I brandished the lopsided makeshift weapon like a giant mace before lifting 250 pounds plus the bar would have been next to impossible. I normally bench 230 pounds, which was a respectable amount. With my strength now at 9, I could still feel the weight, but I lifted it easily. It was enough to be awkward and maybe too much to just regularly walk around with, but I knew I could easily swing it. And I did, as hard as I could at the monster's scaly head. Crash! My whole body shuddered, as if I'd swung at a solid wall. The boss staggered, falling on his side, dropping the weight he'd managed to pull free. The bar trembled, and the 3 weights fell off the far end. I smacked him one more time with the much lighter bar, then tossed it. I picked up one of the 100-pound weights at my feet, lifted it over my head with both hands, and smashed down on the juicer. I smashed and I smashed. His health bar slowly descended as he cried out, "Stop! Ow! No, bro, it hurts!" Just when I thought he was done, about to die, he twisted. His giant arm shot up fast as a snake strike, and it grasped my wrist. It felt as if a steel shackle had wrapped around me. Oh, fuck, I thought, as I dropped the bloody, dripping weight, which bounced off the monstrosity's stomach. He took his other hand and grasped my neck. "This is gonna hella burn," he said, sitting up. The fog cleared and his eyes focused on me. Despite being lizard-faced, a row of pustules circled his eyes, like zits that had grown up through the scales. He stank of sweat and burned flesh and Axe body spray. He started to squeeze, and I knew I was dead. My health bar plummeted. A magic missile slammed into the juicer's back. This was a weak one, and the monster barely acknowledged it with a grunt. "Hold on, Carl!" Donut cried. She emerged, flying through the air, claws out like a tiger, pouncing on unsuspecting prey. She landed directly on the monster's massive bulbous shoulder, and she bit down hard on his vein-covered neck as her rear legs scrabbled at his back. Tendrils of green and red tissue went flying as if she were on a potato peeler gone haywire. Or as if she were a potato peeler gone haywire. Ooh. I lost where I was. She bit through one of the veins on his neck, vampire-like. Blood sprayed as if she had struck oil, soaking Donut, who gurgled in response. The giant hand at my neck went slack, and he slapped backwards at Donut. He barely hit her, a glancing blow, but she rocketed off the creature's back as if she'd been shot out of a cannon. She hit the far wall with a sickening crunch. "Donut!" I cried. I scrambled to my feet, wheezing for breath as the monster reached for his shredded back in obvious agonizing pain. Blood sprayed from his neck as if she'd sheared off a water spigot. The blood just kept coming and coming, an impossible amount. The juicer looked at me, eyes surprised, as if he hadn't realized I was still alive. "I'm proud of you, bro," he said. "You fought through the pain." I hit him with a weak jab, and that's all it took. The boss, whose health was already all but depleted, crumpled onto his back. I smashed his solid head with my foot. The system seemed to release whatever supernatural protection it gave to bones and flesh once the creature was dead, and his head caved in easily under my heel. It felt as if I'd stepped into a rotten watermelon. I didn't pause to look at the carnage. I rushed across the room toward Donut. She laid in a bloodied heap on the floor, her leg bent in the wrong direction. Her health bar had nothing but the barest sliver of red. "Donut," I cried, coming to my knees before her. "God damn it, Donut, don't you do this to me!" She gasped, not dead. The cat was entirely soaked in blood, but she was alive. I worriedly watched her health, terrified it might go lower. Sometimes, when you were injured, it continued to decrease, just like on the surface. The winner graphic appeared on my screen, and the music stopped as I plunged into my inventory. I had to wait 10 frustrating seconds for the bullshit to clear before I could find what I was searching for. I had a scroll of Heal Critter. I read it, but it didn't work on her. The scroll evaporated from my menu with an error message. "No valid target available. You just wasted a valuable scroll, dumbass." I couldn't cast my heal spell on her, even if I did have enough mana points, which I didn't. Instead, I pulled a healing potion out of my inventory and uncorked it, ready to pour it into her mouth. I'd paused. She'd taken a mana potion just a few minutes earlier. She'd a much longer potion countdown than I did. It probably had something to do with her constitution levels. I couldn't examine her and tell where that countdown was, if it had run out or not. Would it hurt her if I tried to feed the potion to her early? I didn't know. Any damage now would surely kill her. I quickly pulled a second healing potion and decided to test it on myself. Using the quick slots, it wouldn't allow me to take a second potion. But surely the game wouldn't stop me from doing it manually. I downed one health potion, which brought my health back up. This was my first time actually physically drinking one. It tasted oddly like kiwi juice. The bottle disappeared with a poof. The second timer appeared, and I drank the second potion before the timer was done. You have been poisoned. Poison effect nullified. God damn it, I growled. I leaned over Donut, rubbing her soft fur. Stay with me, I said. Crack. The cat murmured in pain as her broken leg magically set itself. The sliver of health grew longer. She was healing, getting better. I sighed, relief washing over me. She would heal on her own, but it was going to take a while. I'd wait another 5 minutes before I risked giving her the potion, which would ease her pain. Carl? Carl, is that you? Donut asked after a minute, lifting her head pitifully. Did we get it? We got it, Donut, I said. You got it. Don't move. Just rest for a minute. You saved my life. I have been grievously injured in battle, she said. In saving you, I have made the ultimate sacrifice. I can feel my life fading away, Carl. I'm circling that last bend into the drain. This is the end. I used my claws like you said, and I have perished as a result. Miss Beatrice is going to be most displeased with you. She coughed twice, 2 coughs that sounded suspiciously fake. Tell her I fought bravely. Tell her I fought to the end. Fine, Ferdinand. Tell him I loved him. I loved him ever since I first saw him. Her health suddenly rocketed back up on its own. She'd taken one of her own health potions. I sighed, relieved. The light. I think I see the light, she croaked as I sat back and crossed my arms. Her eyes were clenched shut in mock pain. This mortal coil is shed. Oh, get up, I said, looking about the room. Help me loot all this crap. And that was the end of chapter 24. I love Donut. I remember when I was first reading this and this happened, I literally thought she was dying and I was so sad because I adore Princess Donut with a burning passion. She's just the best, but I love her dramaticness. She's so extra. And it just makes my day every time I read about her. Taking a look at the next chapter real quick to see how long that one is. Okay, that one's not too long. Oh gosh, we're already an hour and 11 minutes in. I could probably read maybe 2 more chapters before we hit time. But let's see. Maybe I could do 3 if I read fast enough. Well, not too fast, but Alright, chapter 25. After snagging the neighborhood map, I spent some time grabbing all the weight equipment I could carry. There was a lot of it. Free weights and dumbbells littered the room. I took them all. I grabbed multiple weight benches, which weighed nothing more once I removed the bars. I broke down a door I hadn't noticed earlier, and within were several mats and heavy medicine balls and various pieces of broken gym equipment, along with some wrenches and other tools. All into the inventory, including the broken door. I then took everything off the office counter on the receptionist's desk, including a laptop computer with a dead battery and a cabinet filled with paper files. Why are you even bothering? Donut asked, having fully recovered. She frantically attempted to clean the blood off of herself. She was caked. She needed a shower and a brushing. The brushing part was going to be a problem. If we can lift it, then we can take it, I said. It only takes a second. The system is really good about categorizing it all. For some things, like the cabinet, it's faster to pick the whole thing up and add everything into the inventory than it is to search it. For example, I held out my hand, and a half-full bottle of Johnny Walker Black appeared. This was hidden in that cabinet somewhere. The inventory system lets me keep it all together, and it lets me take things out of it too. It's great once you figure out how to work it. We don't know what will be useful and when, so if it's not bolted to the ground, it's going into the bag. Our next stop was a nearby training guild. Thanks to the boss being a higher level than expected, we both hit level 9. The wide expanse of experience needed to hit level 10 spread before us. We also both had piles of loot boxes to open. 3 stars, I see, Mordecai said as we entered the training guild. He paused, his eyes going glossy for a moment. You took out a level 9 boss on your own? Most impressive. Yeah, it was a dumb idea, I said, not knowing that we're going to face... Yeah, it was a dumb idea, I said. Not knowing what we're going to face really sucks. It's hard to prepare for fights when you're going in blind. I sat heavily in the chair while Donut leaped for the fireplace and paused her manic cleaning to open her boxes. The rat creature nodded. Let me explain the fight notes, and I can tell you what you can improve on. He grunted after a moment. Okay, a couple things are clear. First off, brilliant move killing the goblin boss. Those guys are tough, but they aren't as hard as the thing you just fought. That's a new one to me. He shook his head. The juicer. I think it was somebody from our world, mixed up with one of those troglodytes, I said. He wasn't as lucid as the hoarder lady had been. They'd done something to him to make him say all that dumb shit. The bosses are caricatures, exaggerated stereotypes. It's like they're being controlled by an AI, but their consciousness is still rattling around in there too. It's really bizarre. Mordecai nodded. It's what they do. Right now, across the universe, every eye is focused on Earth. Programs about your culture are reaching all the corners of the galaxy. The bosses are a part of that. It's like this every season. Anyway, let's look at your performance. When you hit it with that heavyweight, you did the same amount of damage as you would have with your fists. You need to understand how powerful your bare knuckle skill has become. It's just as good right now as any unenchanted weapon you may find. I understand it's not convenient sometimes, but I recommend sticking with the bare hand attack. Also, you wasted those confusing scrolls. Next time, have the party member with the highest intelligence read any scrolls if you can. Your intelligence of 3 made it so the fog only lasted 15 seconds. Princess Donut's intelligence level would have resulted in the fog lasting for 120 seconds per scroll. Damn, I said. Also, is that why she can't take potions so often? Because her constitution is low? Yes, Mordecai said. That shred attack of hers is very powerful, but it's useless until she gains more armor and more health. You're lucky she hadn't broken her neck. Picking a class or a race with a high base constitution will help, but not much. She'll need to load up on items that enhance it, and those tend to be less common. Welcome in, Dip. I see you popping in there. We're currently reading Dungeon Crawler Carl because it's Tales with Time today, so get cozy and tuck in. I looked at Donut, who was hissing with rage at the piles of torches that kept appearing in front of her. She'd received yet another spellbook in the bronze boss box, but she hadn't read it yet. Most everything else appeared to be the same old crap, with a couple exceptions. She got a bracelet from a silver adventurer box she received for finally dealing melee damage. The bracelet added +2 to her dexterity stat, bringing it to 12. She equipped it and it wrapped snugly around her front leg. She also received a dozen heal scrolls from a silver survivor's box. That one was rewarded to her because she'd ended a boss fight with less than 5% of her health. The scrolls were good to have because there was no countdown between reading each one, and even better yet, we could use the scrolls on each other. She looked up at us. I am already one of God's most perfect creatures, so I won't be changing race when the opportunity arises. I was born a cat, and I will die a cat. In fact, I'm going to have to insist that Carl choose a cat race as well. I am not going to change to a cat, I said. In fact, I've been thinking about it, and I decided I'm going to stick with human. Donut did her approximation of a shrug and glowed as she read the magical tome. Did you at least read the description first? I asked. What was it? Mordecai nodded. That's a good one. Puddle jumper. What does it do? I asked. She can teleport herself and up to 3 others to somewhere else that is within her line of sight. It will be especially useful if you come across rivers of lava or other impassable locations. Higher levels of the spell allow her to go further. If she manages... Oh, thank you, Dip! I see... Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Very much appreciated. Thank you for the donation. Oh gosh, where was I? Higher levels of the spell allow her to go further. If she manages to hit level 15 with the spell, it works almost as well as teleport. One of the most powerful and most important spells to have in this dungeon. It costs 20 mana to cast and has a 10-second delay and a 5-hour cooldown. It's not as good as a combat spell with that long of a delay, but it's still great to have. What we really need is the ability to heal each other better, I said. Yes, you do, Mordecai said. There are a lot of methods out there. Those 12 heal scrolls are good, and I suspect you're about to get a few more. But for now, I would avoid letting Donut use her melee attacks unless it's absolutely necessary. Her strength stat is phenomenal for this floor, but it'll start to catch up to her later. She was at strength 18 during that fight. By way of comparison, the juicer had a strength of 25. She's in the wrong body to properly utilize that stat for hand-to-hand combat. Plus, her health is simply too low. For now. He nodded at the cat, who had resumed her hopeless self-grooming. And you, little one, your dodge skill is level 4. Keep working on it. Once it hits 5, it'll be much easier for you. Look, I said, the real reason we're here is because we've only found 1 set of stairs down, but there's a problem. Mordecai's eyes widened as I told him about the others and the burrow boss. The solution is simple, he he said. Skip the boss and keep searching for another set of stairs. They're out there, and most aren't guarded. We drove for a day straight before we found this one, I said. I'm really worried this is our only chance. Do you know what type of monster that is? Do you have any tips? If I did know what it was, I wouldn't be allowed to tell you. I have a very specific, rigorous set of rules I must follow, especially when it comes to bosses. Come back here after the fight, and I'll happily sit down with you and analyze the battle and tell you all the boss's stats. But if I tell you about the boss ahead of time, it's considered cheating. You don't want to be caught cheating. I can tell you that it's madness to face a burrow boss with only 6 crawlers. I sighed. All of this talk about future levels and choosing a race and class war was a waste of time. None of that was going to matter if we didn't manage to make it past the first damn door. Is there anything you can tell me? Mordecai thought for a moment. Tell me, what does that juicer boss have in common with the bad llama boss you fought earlier? I shrugged. They're both addicted to drugs? No, not that. How did you kill the llama? I throat punched him and made his head melt off? Mordecai nodded. And the juicer? What attack do you suppose took him down? It was a combination of several things, but probably when Donut bit his neck and tapped directly into his bloodstream. I laughed as Donut glowered at me. She still looked as if she tried to reenact the final scene from Carrie. That's exactly right, Mordecai said. Most of these creatures have a weakness. The throat for the llamas, the high-pressure veins for the boss. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. The hoarder, for example, I can now tell you her weakness, was the bugs coming out of her mouth. If you'd killed one before it had fully emerged, the next cockroach in line wouldn't have been able to get out. It would have choked and killed her. I never really thought of it that way, I said. Look for a vulnerability, and once you find it, exploit it. You haven't yet walked into a boss battle completely blind like you say. There have been clues every time. There will always be clues. Look for them. There will always be clues. What did we know about this burrow boss? I'd thought about that as I sat down and examined my new achievements and boxes. In addition to the boss box, it was mostly the standard stuff. My bare knuckle and other fighting skills all ticked up to 6, including my smush skill. My iron punch rose to 5. I received random achievements for riding the chopper for more than 5 hours. Another for having killed more than 100 wandering monsters in the maze. I'd received a bronze survivor's box for having less than 10% health when the boss died. I received 5 more of the heal scrolls for that one, leaving us with 17 of them. Most of the other prizes were the standard bronze or silver adventure boxes, potions, bandages, and biscuits. I did receive a random cowboy hat, which I tossed into my inventory. I also was awarded with an interesting achievement. New achievement, 2 chicks at the same time. You killed 2 mobs at once using only their own bodies against each other. On a brutality scale of Bambi to Martyrs, this is a solid 7. Reward, you've received a gold brawler box. I also received another gold looter box for storing more than 10 tons worth of crap in my storage. The boss box contained a pile of ninja stars. Enchanted shuriken of bloodlust, times 100. Small, low-damage throwing stars. These bad boys aren't anything special upon first glance. With the same black stars you wannabe ninjas purchased at the knife shop and the swap meet when you were kids. The same throwing stars you drill into the drywall of your room until your mom caught you and took them away. And while these shurikens don't have the ability to turn you into a ninja, nor do they have the capacity to make your mom stop drinking, they are enchanted with a bloodlust enchantment. For every monster you damage with a shuriken from this set, the damage against that monster type rises by 8%. I looked at Mordecai. When it says the damage increases by 8%, does it mean 8% from the original amount or 8% compounded? That's a big deal after a while. I don't know, Mordecai said. Hang on. His eyes went glossy as he presumably entered some sort of tutorial guide-only help menu. Good news, it's compounded, he said after a minute, so each hit will be 8% higher than the previous amount. The bad news is the stars are very fragile. That sounded pretty awesome at first, but I suspected it wasn't that great of an achievement. It'd take a long time to power them up. I'd have to do a ton of throwing to make them worthwhile. I only had 100 of them. I'd have to collect them back each time, and if they broke a lot, then I might only get one chance to really use them. The gold looter box contained yet another skill potion. It was once again a determined value skill tonic. I drank it, leveling the skill up to 2. I couldn't see a difference in the menu. I suspected I'd need 3 more before it became really useful. The brawler box contained the best item of the lot. After my shirt and cloak, it was easily the greatest loot I'd won so far in the dungeon. It was exactly the type of weapon I'd been hoping for. Enchanted War Gauntlet of the Exalted Gruul, right-handed. +3 strength, in fist mode only. +1 dexterity. Plus 2 skill levels to Iron Punch. Plus 1 skill level to Powerful Strike. 2% chance to stun enemy upon a successful hit. Item is a wrist bracer that transforms into a spiked war gauntlet made of orcish steel with the hand when the hand is shaped into a fist, or wields a hilted weapon for more than 2 seconds at a time. This item on its own does not negate the bare knuckle skill bonus. Warning: if you use this weapon to strike adherents of the war god Gruul, you have 1.5% chance to transfigure your target into a deity himself. Trust me on this. You don't want to do that. A bigger, redder warning: remove this item before you jerk off. Hey, Mordecai, I said as I removed the chain and slipped the charcoal-colored bracer over my wrist. How can I tell if someone worships Gruul? He grunted. Equine-class creatures worship him, so if it's a horse or a centaur or a Tikbalang, then he might worship Gruul. Creatures like that bad llama might also pray to him, but not until after the 3rd floor. The biggest tell is that they smear blue makeup all over themselves and won't stop talking about winches and dying gloriously in battle. Mordecai paused. He looked up nervously, as if not sure he should say the next part. And just so you know, Gruul isn't a real god. There are no real gods in this game. Does that really make a difference? I asked. Mordecai was suddenly solemn, and I didn't know why. He looked at me, intense. You said you worry that some of these bosses and mobs are like you. Here against their will. He pointed downward, indicating the lower levels. That's not always going to be the case, especially later on. Remember that. There are no gods here, just those who pay for the privilege. Okay, I said, trying to make sense of what he was desperately attempting to tell me. What the goodness is a Tikbalang? Donut asked, pausing in her cleaning. It sounds like some sort of disease a sailor would get. Do you know what a horse is? Mordecai asked, looking up. He seemed relieved for the question. Of course. They're like that, but meaner. I closed my fist. 2 seconds ticked by. I felt a haptic buzz all up my arm, and with a whoosh, my hand turned into a spiked hunk of metal. I had to clench my fist really tight to make it work, which is good. The last thing I needed was this thing appearing when I didn't want it to. I examined the malevolent-looking gauntlet. There was nothing ornate about it. It was black, angular, with multiple gleaming spikes. A tool, nothing more. It felt heavy on my hand, but not too heavy. No more breaking fingers when I punched something. I felt the extra strength ripple through me. I released my fist, and the gauntlet vanished in a puff of smoke that smelled of burned hair. Awesome, I said. And that is the end of chapter 25. Good chapter. They defeated the boss. They went and talked to our rat buddy Mordecai. Learned some more stuff about the dungeon. And Carl got I couldn't remember when he got that. I was like, when did he get the gauntlet? Because he can't keep beating things with his bare fist. Also, Dip, if you're still here, thank you again for the $15 donation. Seriously, very much appreciated. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I have a donation thingy up for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. So if you ever want to donate, please donate to that, because it's just a good cause. But yes. Thank you, seriously. Very much appreciated. We are going to go ahead and move on to chapter 26. We have about, I want to say 30-ish minutes left before we end stream. Also, before I continue reading here, I do have some announcements at the end of stream, so when we get near the end, don't leave just quite yet. I'm gonna go over some stuff for tomorrow and all that. So, yes, chapter 26. Time to level collapse, 6 hours and 30 minutes. Are you ready? I asked Brandon as we poised at the entrance to the Burrow Boss chamber. No, he said, smiling sadly. He clutched onto his massive warhammer for a moment. It disappeared into his inventory. The giant weapon could only get in the way during the first part of the plan. Donut perched on my shoulder while the others crowded behind us. We didn't have time left for any more training, any more preparation. It was now or never. The 3rd episode of Dungeon Crawler World hadn't offered any additional insight. Donna and I had sat in a Taco Bell watching it on the screen while the proprietor, another Bobka protector named Sebastian, sat next to us and brushed Donut's hair with one of his own brushes, which he'd gifted to her after her 3rd shower. Her insane charisma of 41 caused the level 21 NPC to practically fall in love with her the moment we entered the safe zone. I sipped on a delicious Peruvian beer and picked up my T-bone steak as we watched crawlers by the dozens get slaughtered while the host breathlessly described the action. The second half of the program had zeroed in on 5 different groups of adventurers, including that woman with the magical crossbow and Lucia Marr with her 2 Rottweilers. The other 3 groups were larger, including one that comprised of 150 African soldiers armed with AK-47s. All of these groups, if the show was to be believed, were just moonwalking their way through the dungeon. All of them had found stairwells down already and were camping near them, waiting for the clock to tick to exactly 6 hours before they descended. Much to Donut's dismay, we were once again snubbed by the program. I didn't care. I was much more occupied with that number. I couldn't get it out of my head. 2,552,085. From 13 million to this is just under 4 days. A cataclysm. Every single one of those numbers was a person. Someone who had lived, breathed, hoped, laughed, and they were just gone. The announcement hadn't offered any additional insight either. Another more stern warning about using hallways as a bathroom. A litany of changes regarding spells and power levels of mobs, none of which affected us. After sleeping for a few hours, we headed back to the encampment, and I related my dubious off-the-cuff plan to the group of crawlers, who had appeared shocked that we'd actually returned. "Here we go," I said, now stepping across the drawbridge and through the giant archway. Brandon, Chris, Yolanda, and Amani followed. We hesitantly entered the ground courtyard to the spiral maze. "No, Agatha, don't!" I heard a voice behind me. It was Yolanda yelling at the woman with the shopping cart, who'd wheeled up behind us. The woman didn't listen to Yolanda and pushed her way into the entrance hall, cackling with delight. "You're not doing this without old Agatha." "We don't have room for you, Agatha," Yolanda yelled. "Get back!" "Crazy bat," Brandon said. "You're going to get us all killed." "I think that roly-poly is the one that's going to get us all killed," Agatha said. "Shut up. Everybody shut up," Amani said, raising her hand. "Listen for the monster." "Don't worry," I said. "It's going to announce itself at any moment." The gate behind us slammed shut as music rose. Metal bars magically appeared, locking us in. This was different music than usual. Faster, more frenetic. An EDM beat mixed by a DJ hopped up on Adderall. A deep bass reverberated off the ground. The lights flickered, then went dark. A moment later, they came back on, filling the area with the purple hue of a black light. Neon lights appeared on the ceiling. Lasers ripped across the hallways, flashing in the beat with the music. We'd stepped into a rave. The sound of rocks scraping filled the room, louder than the song. I turned in a circle, trying to find the source. It was the walls of the courtyard, I realized. They were sinking into the ground, leaving us exposed. "Boss battle!" The voice was distorted, even louder than last time. "You have discovered the lair of a burrow boss. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the main event. Are you ready? Can you feel it coming? I said, are you ready? I want you to put your hands together, and here we go." I grimaced as I waited for the walls of the round courtyard to finish sinking into the earth. I turned to Brandon. "Get ready." I had to shout the words. The man nodded. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Behind, the three others spread out. Chris and short Yolanda both looked absolutely terrified. Amani clutched her sword in 2 hands, looking grim. Agatha stood there, seemingly oblivious, scratching a hair between her 2 bulbous eyes. Our 7 mugshots appeared floating in the air. One by one, I noted we were in 3 groups. The royal court of Princess Donut Meadowlark, and Agatha was just Crawler Agatha. The giant verses slammed into place. The metallic word was in silver font instead of a bronze one this time. The words burst into flames, and even though this was supposedly virtual text, I felt a blast of heat. And that's when we saw it. With the wall fully retracted, a hallway appeared before us, like we were standing on the landing before a tunnel in a subway, but without the drop. The round tunnel was about as wide as a single-lane freeway, about 15 feet tall. The creature roared by right in front of us, startlingly fast, moving from right to left. It was massive, made of flesh, rolling like a pinball. It stank of sewage and rotten meat. It grunted and squealed, a high-pitched, angry pig noise. The flesh was pink, rippling, covered in eyes and random hairs and tusks. But there was something else there, too. Random flaps of black and white cloth were embedded in the flesh, mixed in with swaths of red sequined fabric. "What in the holy hell is that?" Brandon shouted. "It looks like there are—" The world froze. The Ball of Swine, level 15 Burrow Boss. Oh, also known as the Pork Chop Express. The ball of swine is one of the rarest, most deadly battle formations of the Tuskling, encompassing at least 30 Tuskling knights and their lady loves. A ball formation requires a specific set of circumstances to create. Combine a gathering of tussling aristocracy, add an alcohol-fueled, sexually charged orgy of warlust, and sometimes, just sometimes, the wild, ancient battle magic that permeates their war-torn world casts a spell forming the ball. The Tusslings, the ruling class of the Orcish supremacy, shape into an inseparable sphere that rolls into the countryside. The ball of pork won't stop its night of terror until it has crushed the poor, the weak, and the lesser citizens under its unstoppable weight. Plucked directly from a tussling high caucus moments after it formed, this particular ball has been transferred here to this dungeon for your entertainment, ladies and gentlemen. The magic of the ball won't allow them to stop until every last drop of crawler blood is squeezed right out of their human bodies. The world unfroze, and the ball continued its trajectory, rolling away down the path. Ahead of me, more walls moved and shifted, grinding loudly. The walls and entranceways were creating new paths, guiding the massive ball in our direction. Wow, Donut said from my shoulder. I'm feeling really ignored right now. Why is it always human this, human that? Why can't it be blood is squeezed out of their human and feline bodies? Looking to my left and right, I could see what was about to happen. With the lowering of the walls, a new path opened, and we were on it. The heavy, pounding music was deliberate. We could no longer feel the oncoming train of the giant pig ball. At its current speed, it would circle around onto us in a minute, maybe less. Move, I cried. Where? Brandon called. Away from here, I said. I pulled the first of several spike strips from my inventory and dropped it on the ground before rushing forward. We moved toward the long, wide path the ball had just rocketed over. A moment later, the ball rushed past again, right where I'd been standing, missing Agatha and her shopping cart by inches. The woman cackled with joy as a squealing wind blew up the flaps of her hat. In the brief moment it passed by, I caught a slight glimpse of a tussling face jutting from the center side of the ball, spinning like an ornamental car rim. The orc creature was large and meaty from what I could tell. It held a tusked wild boar of a face that was twice as wide as a person's. The face had 4 tusks, 2 long curved tusks and a second pair farther back, crossed in front of its ugly face. This one was female, I guess. Purple eyeshadow ran from the top of its bulbous black stare. Her cross tucks were pierced in multiple places. She also appeared to have a giant purple flower on her head, but the flowers pressed into the pink flesh of the ball, completely flattened. Her mouth was open in a constant angry squeal. Above the monstrosity appeared a health bar. It was fully green, but the spike strip had damaged it for at least a single point. That was good. A wall rose into the air, blocking us from going back that direction we'd just come. Our plan had anticipated that the walls were going to change. Looking at the ground, I could see a groove had formed onto the stone, multiple concentric circles leading toward the center of the small arena. Some of the grooves led directly into the walls. Amongst the grooves, dozens of long, straight lines crisscrossed the ground at right angles. This was where the walls would go up and down. We needed to find a flat area wide enough for our redoubt. The deeper we went, the closer to the stairs, the more quickly the pig ball would circle around. Look for solid hunks of ground, big ones with no grooves, I called as I threw a second spike strip onto the ground. And go! An entranceway to the next ring appeared about 10 feet behind us. Move! I cried. We rushed for the small gate, Agatha going in first. A hunk of stone started rising from the ground as I rushed through, stumbling. There! Amani called, pointing to a large square on the ground. Through a second doorway, yet another circle deeper. It was like a gap in the path, designed to encompass 2 circles at once. Go! I cried, rushing forward and dropping a third and fourth strip. Despite the heavy bass, I felt the ball hurtle past on the other side of the wall. High-pitched squealing rocketed away like the whine of a race car. It's getting faster. We rushed to the center of the square. This chunk of the floor was like a railroad switch, a place where the ball could change paths. The space was about 15 feet by 15 feet, with no crevices. Perfect. It's coming from this way, I said, pointing right. I think it needs 2 loops to go here. Let's do this. Just like we practiced. Go! I pointed at Agatha. You, sit your ass down on the ground in the middle and don't move. I ain't leaving my... Hey! Agatha cried as I grasped the heavy cart from both sides and shifted into the air, wasting a few precious seconds to put it into my inventory. Thief! She cried. Thief! Agatha, he'll give it back. Sit down! Yolanda cried as she started pulling her V-shaped braces from her inventory. I ignored the screaming crazy woman as I pulled the heavy goblin table from my inventory and placed it on its side. All around me, the others went to work. We'd been practicing this for hours. We'd gotten it down to less than 20 seconds for the main structure and another 20 to put it all together. Hopefully, that was enough time. It had taken us almost 5 hours to build the pieces of the redoubt, or, as Brandon called it, the speed bump. Brandon and his brother weren't nurses at the facility. They were maintenance guys, and these dudes knew what they were doing. They didn't normally work after hours, but they'd been there that night, pushing overtime, trying to fix an oven that was on the fritz before the morning staff showed up to make breakfast. I described my idea. I spread out a bunch of the looted goblin tools for them, explained exactly what I wanted to do, and we went straight to work. We created a portable modular fortress, consisting of tables, weight equipment, and loads of other odds and ends. The angled, 4-foot-high structure looked like a lopsided tortoiseshell when it was completed. We didn't have any sort of welding equipment, but the goblins had hand-cranked drills, large tooth bolts designed to screw into the holes the drills created. They also had these small half-moon saws that cut through steel with alarming ease. We removed the legs from the workshop tables, then bolted new ones on, utilizing the load-bearing legs from the weight equipment. The tables were designed to sit solidly at a low angle when we put them on their side. After, we bolted weight benches onto the sides of the tables, like attaching shutters to the edges of a door frame. Both Brandon and Amani had received items that gave them boosts to their strength, and they each had 2 sections of wall to place. The pieces were large and unwieldy and heavy as shit, but when placed down in the correct order, Amani, then Brandon, then Amani, then me with the largest piece, and then finally Brandon, the multiple pieces slid together, bolts moving into precisely placed holes. Brandon and I moved to the roof, made of the crossbars of weight racks, while Chris and Amani twisted massive fist-sized butterfly bolts, affixing the pieces together. Yolanda pulled the rest of the angled braces out of her inventory, sliding them into place, one after another, moving in a circle around the circumference of the Pentagonish defense. This is just like something they do on that show, The A-Team, Donut had exclaimed when we'd practiced this earlier. Or maybe MacGyver, the real MacGyver, with the hair in the Stargate, not the abysmal remake. I liked that show, Chris had said as he worked. It was the first and only time I heard him speak. Which one, the A-Team or MacGyver? Donut asked. Or do you mean the remake? Please tell me you don't mean the remake. Chris never answered. Once the top was bolted into place, Brandon, Amani, and I moved to the last crucial part. The braces for the roof. 5 heavy-duty barbell poles designed to hold more than 1,000 pounds of weight each. Drink of water. There we go. I discovered if I held my hand in just the correct place and called the heavy pull from inventory, it wedged itself perfectly between the roof and ground, solid as a concrete pillar. Our mini fortress had a usable area of about 10 by 10 feet, and we had to move about on our hands and knees. It was tight when it was just the 6 of us, but with the addition of Agatha, who continued to wail about her damn shopping cart, we could barely move without slamming into each other. And because she joined us, we didn't have room to place the final center pole. I looked worriedly at the center cross-section of the roof, just as Zona explained. Here it comes! If the boss had any sort of fire or lightning or acid attack, we were absolutely fucked. So far, it seemed each boss only had one main attack, and this one's was pretty obvious. It rolled right the fuck over you. My knee pads had an attribute that canceled our momentum-based attacks, but if my experience with video games was any indication, one couldn't count on that sort of thing when it came to bosses. Plus, there was no way I was going to test it. Once as a kid, I was riding down a country road with my mom and dad. They'd been fighting as usual, and I'd climbed into the very back of the SUV, as far back as I could get. I'd oftentimes do this, staring out the rear window as the world whipped by, pretending like I was in the cockpit I'd oftentimes do this... Oh yeah, I read that right. I was in the cockpit of a spaceship. On this day, a large yellow truck was behind us. It was one of those box trucks, Penske, something people rented to move. Oh, hold on, I just realized my model froze. Oh, why are you freezing? Load. Oh boy. I just love when that happens. Hold on, let me fix it before I continue. Come on, load in. Oh, we're almost at time too. I wonder why it's not loading in. The heck? Hold on. Pause for a second. Let me retry. This dang model. Oh, there we go. Alright, continuing on. It happened so fast. One moment I was staring up at the guy who was getting so close to my dad's ass that I had to crane my neck up to see him, and then the truck was just stopped, pulling away from us. The top peeled off like a sardine can. We'd gone under a bridge, and the truck was too tall. As I watched, the sides of the truck fell away, spilling furniture and boxes all over the road with a resounding crash. The main cab of the truck tilted violently to the side, broken away from the rest of the body. My dad heard the accident, looked up into the rear view mirror, muttered, "That's a shame," and just kept driving as my mom yelled at him to stop. He didn't. That's what I was hoping would happen here. This massive ball of flesh filled the hallway from the ground to the ceiling. My forward section of the redoubt was wider, giving a more gradual angle, just enough to wedge the ball between us and the ceiling nice and tight. Like Mordecai had suggested, I needed to look at the clues. Those strange entrances dotting the sides of the arena were there for a reason. It was so we could catch a glimpse of the monster. All I could see was that it was a big, round, fast, and shoved slightly in. Oh my gosh! All I could see was that it was big, round, fast, and shoved slightly into the tunnel. My first idea was to build a solid wall, but as we observed the ball from one of the many portcullis from one of the port entrances, the track forced the monster directly into a 90-degree angle. It bounced right off, barely losing speed as it turned away. There will always be clues. It never lost momentum. It just kept going and going. So we needed to stop it somehow. And we needed to be in a position to do something about it once it did. I was hoping it'd hit our structure and get wedged in good. From there, Amani would stab, Donut would shoot missiles, Chris would cast the spells, and the rest of us would jab our makeshift Ninja Star tipped spears up into the boss until its health ran out. Most of the goblin tables were made of thick, hefty steel, which was why they were so damn heavy. The wide table we used for the front of the redoubt also had a pitted wooden covering. Brandon, Chris, and I had spent a good 5 minutes throwing 50 of my ninja shuriken deep into the wood, adding a black spike to the ramp. Spikes that would hopefully damage the boss each time they pierced its flesh. Unfortunately, only about 20 of the stars remained unbroken. That part had been Brandon's idea. I'd shown him the shuriken and allowed him to read the description. "These things are way more powerful than you realize," he'd said, voice filled with awe. "Do the math. Compounding damage means if you poke something 200 times, it's like literally millions of points of damage." "I don't do math," I said, "but I do know we ain't poking anything 200 times with these things. Look." I pulled a single star out. I tested it earlier to see if I had any sort of ninja skill. It had received a single chip, and the red enchantment had faded away. Mordecai wasn't kidding when he said these things were fragile. They were clearly meant to be only used once, tempering their value. Despite their fragility, we'd used several of these stars to create the spike strips, nothing more than a pair of stars placed between two pieces of bolted together wood. They'd survive 1 or 2 stabbings before breaking. The strips wouldn't be stopping the monsters by themselves, but each time it rolled over one, the amount of damage inflicted on the boss would increase by 8%. "Brace," I cried, grasping onto the wall as the monster barreled toward us, impossibly fast. Crash! The entire structure shuddered and slid with a horrifying screech. All 4 of the ceiling braces popped out of place and went flying. One bounced hard off Yolanda, throwing her over. The terrible stench filled the now dark chamber. An unending, high-pitched squeal filled the air. We'd done it. The ceiling sagged, bending ominously as dark squares of flesh pushed through the empty spaces of the lattice pattern. The ceiling was going to break. We were going to be crushed. The ball had managed to squeeze itself between the top of the tunnel and our fortress, the massive pressure pushing down against our defense. "Stab!" I cried as a stick appeared in my hand. It was half of a chin-up bar with a goblin clamp at the end, clutching onto a tied-together cluster of 3 stars. I hoped they'd be less likely to break if bunched together. I jabbed upward, poking the flesh. It felt as if I was doing nothing. Next to me, Imani struggled to get her long sword angled and through the holes in the ceiling. She was pushing her sword all the way in and pulling out, over and over. Pigs squealed. Blood rained. The music quickened. To my left, bolts popped from the holes, shooting off like bullets. One clobbered Agatha, who didn't appear to notice despite a well of blood that appeared. She was still screaming something about her shopping cart. Above the pressure grew. I stabbed and I stabbed. And then just as the top collapsed, I pierced upward, and there was a mighty pop, like a balloon. Tuxedoed male and female tusklings in glittering formal gowns rained down upon us as our ill-fated fortress collapsed. The lattice-patterned ceiling broke into pieces, the metal clanging and bending where it was bolted together. My hobbled-together spear was caught in one of the ceiling's holes. It ripped out of my hands as I was violently crushed onto the ground. I arched my back, protecting Donut under my body. Squeals and screams and hollering filled the hall as my minimap turned into a mass of red dots. A fat, heavy orc crashed into me, and we both rolled, tangled in pieces of ceiling. Donut yowled and leaped away. The ninja star-covered tabletop lay broken to my right. A handful of stars still glowed red, and the creature rolled onto them, squealing with pain. I pulled myself to my feet just as Donut leaped onto my shoulder. She was screaming something incoherent, shooting magic missiles point-blank at the tusklings, who rocketed backward with each hit. I stepped on the squealing tuskling, smushing him deeper into the shuriken-covered wood. His health bar dropped, slow at first and then just plummeted away as the exponential damage bonus kicked in. Half of the creatures were already dead. I caught eyes with the next closest tuskling, a male in a tuxedo. He was unarmed and completely disoriented. He held what appeared to be a wine flute in his hand. A wine flute in his hand that was miraculously unbroken and still full of alcohol. The creatures were odd, much shorter than I had anticipated. They had large, wide bodies and torsos 1.5 times as bulky as a regular human. Their large warthog heads sat too close to their shoulders, making them look neckless. But from the waist down, their bodies were comically short. The beast only stood about 4.5 feet tall. I quickly examined his properties, and the tottering creature pulled the wine flute to his mouth. Tuskling Knight, level 4. When it comes to the Tuskling, their titles are about as accurate as their dating website photos. The once mighty warriors conquered the Orcish supremacy hundreds of years ago, defeating all the other clans. They are now shelves of the mighty warriors they once were. The honorarium knight roughly translates to overweight, alcoholic bureaucratic who spends his days making new laws to oppress the poor and his night drinking and getting pegged. Knights and their slightly more dangerous female counterparts, Tuskling courtesans, are only worthy adversaries when they come together to form an ancient Tuskling battle formation known as a ball of swine. I formed a fist. On my back, I called to Donut. She was out of magic missiles, and she'd already taken a mana potion. She dove under my cloak, hanging on to the back of my jacket like a backpack. She'd pop up when she regenerated enough mana to cast another missile over my shoulder. I pulled my arm back and punched the fat, tuxedoed knight with all my strength. The pig man's health was already in the red, and his face caved in under the crushing blow of the spiked gauntlet. He dropped, still clutching onto his glass of wine. Half of his snout remained attached to my fist. Miraculously, I didn't feel a thing. I only felt the impact in my arm, not my hand. Yes, I said, whirling on my next opponent as I shook the gore free. A female, a courtesan. The men were all level 4, and the women were all level 5. This one was slightly taller and fatter than the others. She wore a glittering red gown with multiple leather straps looped over and around her like a vest. It was like some sort of weird BDSM getup. She, too, was looking around, dazed and screaming in confusion. It seemed they had no memories of their time in the pig ball. They were victims, just as all the other bosses had been. But their dots were red. Time was running out, and they weren't human. I took a step forward and I swung. The punch knocked her health down halfway. She hit the ground with an oof, raising her arms to block the blows. I kicked at her savagely, screaming, maybe crying. I kicked and I kicked until her health bar went away. Behind the woman, Imani was also screaming, swinging her sword as tears streamed down her face. She stood over the prone form of Yolanda, whose health bar was alarmingly low. Brandon had retrieved his giant maul, which glittered with lightning when he swung it. Chris swirled an ethereal magic spear. The spear was a spell he could cast. It lasted for 5 minutes. Agatha hadn't moved, but she stood once the walls fell away. Blood gushed down the side of her head, her eyes wide as she watched the action. She clutched her hands together. All of the internal walls had retracted once we'd popped the swine ball. We'd gone from a tight hallway to a wide open field. The purple-hued arena spread around us, the size of an entire quadrant. The music still beat, and colorful lasers shot through the space like we were in a massive 1980s-themed roller rink. The roof rose the closer it got to the center. A bright light shone at the very center of the dome. The stairs. A red force field surrounded the stairwell. I knew exactly what had to be done to get that force field to drop. There were more of the Tusklings than there were of us, but they were shocked and confused, having been transported from their own world to this place. They were weaponless. They were untrained. And they were slaughtered. And that is the end of chapter 26. Yes, that was pretty. So they defeated a burrow boss, which from what we've seen in the story so far, no one's been able to do successfully. So I'm sure maybe that'll give them a bit of fame on their little TV show. But yes, we are going to end our reading here for tonight. I think we are now officially, halfway through the book. We are halfway through the book. We're almost there. But yes, as for my announcements that I had for the end of stream, tomorrow I'm either playing The Last of Us or it's going to be random horror game. For the spirit of Halloween. We'll see. I'll put a vote up either tomorrow morning or later tonight. But yes, otherwise... Oh, we're going to find someone to raid real quick. Hold on. Give me just a minute. Hopefully you guys enjoyed story time today. I know I didn't have as much energy as I usually do when I'm reading. For whatever reason, I think that bacon just made me really tired. Alright, we're going to go raid... Let's see. We'll go raid Slacker. Let me get that set up. Hopefully I spelled that right. Yes. All right, we are going to go raid Slacker. But yes, definitely check out the stream tomorrow. If you can't, that's all right. I'll catch you in the next one. But have a good night, day, whatever it may be for you travelers. And bye-bye.